Hi guys, my name is David and welcome back to another episode of my What's Lurking in the Dark series. This is a series which I go through all the stories individually from the horrortube anthology called Lurking in the Dark. And today's one I'm going to be reviewing is called Werewolf of Distinction by Austin Smith. And judging by the little bio that Regina has written about Austin at the back of this anthology, he has a channel called MonsterBlood. Now, I could only find one channel called MonsterBlood, so hopefully this is the same person. If it isn't, I'll have to do this video again. But I am new to MonsterBlood or Austin's channel, but at a glance, it looks like it's more focused on children's horror / YA horror. More like Goosebumps and Fear Street and all that type of stuff. So I'm not really familiar about Austin's channel or MonsterBlood's channel. I think I might have actually heard it in passing, but I haven't watched any of his stuff. So Werewolf of Distinction focuses around our main character, who is a female werewolf. This is a werewolf based story where all the main characters are obviously werewolves. But we follow our main female character, who is called Medusa. Yes, I do mean the actual goddess, the like chick that had all the snakes in her hair and could turn people into stone with a glance of her eyes. We find out that Medusa is living in a forest with a bunch of other werewolves as a pack. Now in this forest, around the perimeter or the border around this forest, there is this massive electrical fence, and they are kind of restricted into that forest. That forest is their territory. That is where they live, they hunt, and they basically live their day-to-day lives. And because they have spent so much time in their wolf state, they have been permanently transformed into wolves. They can no longer transform from human beings to werewolves, which I thought was kind of strange because they've spent so much time in their wolf state. They've actually reverted back to that being a wolf all the time, which I thought was kind of confusing because I thought that werewolves had no control over being a wolf and turning it back into a human being. But hey, it's a story, it's supposed to suspend your disbelief in some way. But this forest is guarded by a group of human beings, these soldiers that have got guns, and they have these gates and they have all these patrols that guard the fence and guard all the entrances in to this forest. And their main job is to keep the peace, keep all the werewolves in the forest and not let them leave. They don't really go into the forest themselves, they just are at the border around the fence area. And we are led to believe that these wolves are, or these werewolves rather, are there or allowed to be there. And as long as they stay in the forest and don't go out of the forest, then they will survive and they will be left alone. It's kind of brought up in the story about why this is the case. It kind of reminded me a little bit about the like Maze Runner movie, where these group of kids were put into this maze and they had no reason why, and they had no idea why rather. And it kind of had a kind of a YA feel to it. It's really hard to to describe. But one day our main female character Medusa has what she appears to be a dream. She falls asleep underneath a tree, and then when she wakes up, she is a butt-ass naked woman. The book and Medusa are led to believe, and the reader is led to believe, that this is a dream. She's kind of shocked by the fact that she's a human, and she's really surprised about how we actually walk, because how tiny our feet are compared to her wolf's feet, I suppose. But she thinks that this is a dream, and that's what she perceives it to be. But as the story goes on, both Medusa and the reader discover that this isn't a dream, and Medusa has been transformed back into a human state. We don't really know why this is the case, but what she does is she goes to the gate and goes to the soldiers, and they take her out of the forest, and Medusa's like, well, I'm with the humans now, but I want to avenge my family, my pack. And she decides to arm herself with some weapons and to like attack the humans within, within the base itself, disguised as a human. Well, not disguised, she's a human, but you know what I mean. The book kind of leaves off on a cliffhanger, which I really do not like in stories and books. I really don't like it about when the book ends and it's like the author ends the story as like, okay, this is how the story ends, but I'll leave it to you guys to figure out what happened. I mean, did this happen, or did this happen, or did the character do this and it resulted in this happening? I really do not like it. Obviously, I do like a little bit of mystery at the end of the book, which makes you think, but I am one of the readers which I like to be told, okay, this is what happens and this is the result of it, and then after I close the book I can think about, okay, this is what the character did after that, if that made any sense. I really do not like it about when it ends on, okay, this is what happened, it's a cliffhanger, and I'm just going to leave it up to you guys to figure out what happens. It's kind of, I don't really want to say a lazy ending, but I don't really like it, guys. I really didn't like it. And it was probably, well, not probably, my only or my biggest complaint about this story. It isn't the best one in this. It's kind of middle of the road, but it's an easy story to read. It's very straightforward and simple. It isn't all bloody and gory and people getting their limbs torn off or blood and guts everywhere. Because Austin, as I can tell by his channel, is more drawn towards the younger side of horror. I could see this being more like that. I could see it as a Goosebumps story. I could see it as a Fear Street story. But for me, it just wasn't enough. There was something missing in the story. And I like the characters. The characters were fine. It's just that I have read loads of, well, not loads, I've read a good amount of young horror novels. But at the same time, you're like wanting to read something that's real batshit insane, all blood and guts and gore that really go for it. But yeah, it's just a me thing. It's just a personal feeling that I have, a personal opinion. So guys, that has been my review for Werewolf of Distinction by Austin Smith, aka MonsterBlood. I'll have his channel linked down below, so please check him out. And if you're watching this, Austin, please take this review with a grain of salt. It's not that I hated this story, it just wasn't really for me. It's more for the kind of people that like to read Goosebumps and the YA side of horror more than the adult side of horror. So please do not get discouraged or anything like that. It's just my own personal preference. So with all that out the way, I'll see you in my next one.